Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and as always, as every single day, Monday through Friday, I am so excited to be here with you today to talk about some concepts and some understandings and some practices that can help you to understand that happiness and your well-being are not some measure of luck or fortune that you either have or don't have, that your happiness and your well-being, and your happiness and your well-being are skills. And just like any other skill that you could possibly ever learn in your life, these skills of happiness and well-being are trainable. And they are trainable through some very simple and accessible practices, and that's what we talk about in this podcast. And so I am just so excited to be here with you because it's so true that, the concept here is that, when we can bring a measure of, or when we can live with the concepts of presence, right? Meaning being here, right now with what is happening, not thinking about, what's going to happen tomorrow, right? While we're eating dinner, we're not, a lot of times, in a lot of cases, when we're eating dinner, we're already thinking about dessert, right? When we're having lunch, we're already thinking about dinner, when we're, and these kind of things, right? These, of course, very silly, basic examples, but it's true, right? That when we train our mind to be here, to enjoy what we're doing right now, right here, even if it's an unenjoyable experience, and we'll get into that another time, but to be with what is happening as it's happening, this alone is a huge jump towards your well-being and your happiness, right? But then when we add in the next three concepts, right? The next one being acceptance, right? The ability to accept what is happening as it's happening, right? This is also going to contribute to your well-being and your happiness. And moving on to the third, and these are not in order, right? They kind of, it's all kind of the same. They're all just as important, just as necessary, just as valuable as each other. But the third one in my list is compassion, right? When we can feel compassion towards others and towards ourselves, again, this is another step in cultivating our own well-being and our own happiness. And then finally, to do all this with a level of curiosity, right? And so we're going through this whole list this week, right? On Monday, we started with the curiosity, where I explained the concept of the beginner's mind, right? And then yesterday, we moved into the compassion, right? And showing how compassion for others as well as compassion for ourselves can equal into our well-being and our happiness, right? And so today, we're going to talk about presence. We're also going to talk about the thing that's on the other side of presence, sort of the flip side of the same coin, which is letting go. We're going to talk about that in detail in just a couple of moments, so don't go anywhere. But then tomorrow we will talk about presence, and I'm so excited. But the concept here with all of this, right? And again, the idea that we are cultivating our own well-being and our own happiness, right? This all lies in the understanding, the reality that when we change ourselves, the world around us changes as well. Now, I don't like to get too woo-woo about this stuff, right? Now, there's a whole concept of law of attraction that talks about this, about elevating your vibration level so that you attract things into your life. And if that is working for you, if your belief in that is a positive thing for you, then I don't want to do anything to dissuade you for that, right? But I don't approach it in that necessarily that way. However, the concept is still, and the result is still the same, right? But what I have found in my work with my clients and with myself, right, is that when we change ourselves, right, when we reposition the way in which we approach and show up for life, right, which is with presence, acceptance, compassion, and curiosity, when we do that, what we're doing is we're sort of almost tuning our own instrument, right, or prepping the canvas, right? Like when an artist buys a new canvas, they put something called gesso on there, right? Just a basic white paint to just give them a neutral, clean, smooth surface, and that now they can create, right? Because ultimately, the concept here is that you are the canvas of your life. You are the movie of your life, right? And when you can regulate the things that are happening within inside of you, your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own sensations, right? When we can cultivate a level of skill of regulating these, right? And we can cultivate the way in which we process the things that are coming into us from other people, right? Then what we do is we start to change everything that happens in our lives. And it's really amazing, right? Now, notice, I'm not talking about changing anything outside of your life for this to happen, right? I'm not talking about the dream car, the dream home, the dream job, the dream spouse, the dream children. I'm not talking about any of that. It's really nice to have those things, and I don't want to, deprive you or deny you of the pleasure of fulfilling your dreams with these, material belongings or people in your life. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But that's not where happiness comes from, right? To the great counterintuitiveness of most people, right? That is not what is happening, right? It is not the job that's going to bring you happiness. It's not the spouse. It's not the kids. It's not the car. It's not the house. It's none of that. What's going to bring you happiness is the ability to be present, to be accepting, to be compassionate, and to be curious. That is what is going to bring you the happiness that you seek in your life. And again, I'm watching it happen, not only with myself, but with all of my clients. Like literally not a single client that I have has not found some level of this happening, right? And many of my clients see unreal levels of this happening, right? Just last night, I was on a meeting with a client who just a few weeks ago, I talked about how she said that if anyone had told her, if I had told her that in a year her life would have changed the way it has changed, she would have, her words, she would have called me a snake oil salesman and run away from me. Those are her words, right? And she repeated basically the same thing last night, that, she just moved into a new house. She's got a job that she absolutely loves. She's helping people in her job. Her boss just bought her a dinner for closing on her house. And she's been there for like a month, and she's already teaching other people because she's doing so well there. It was amazing to listen to this person talk about how happy she is. And compared to where she was a year ago, it's like night and day. And again, nothing changed on the outside. I mean, yes, things have changed on the outside, but that's not where it started. Okay, it's not that I showed her how to get a new job or how to buy a new house or do anything like that resulted in this happiness. No. The happiness resulted in these things in her life kind of falling into place. And again, I hear it everywhere. All of my clients report the same thing, is that when they cultivate this sense of well-being or this level of well-being and happiness through the simple practices that I talk about, well, their jobs get better, their marriages get better, their relationship with their children get better, their inner dialogue gets better. And that's the key, right? Is that the difference is that now they're showing up to life. And when we show up to life, when we're really available for life, well, then things generally tend to fall into place for us in a really, really beautiful way. Right now, a lot of times when I start talking about this, people start to almost move their chair back a little bit as they start to hear me. And they say, well, how much practice are you talking about, Art? I have a job, I have a family. I can't just sit around meditating all day, right? And that's where I love this shirt that I'm wearing. Let me see if I can get this on the screen here. The shirt for all of you on the podcast, and maybe for you on the YouTube who can't read it because my I can't get a good shot of it. But the shirt says, meditation, it's not what you think. Right? It's so brilliant on so many levels. It's one of my favorite t-shirts ever. But anyway, a lot of people will approach me with that concern and say well, how much work are you talking about? Because I don't have that kind of time. Well, let me tell you something, right? The person who I just talked to about just a minute ago, right? Who I was just on the call with last night, a video, Zoom call for our session of the week. She's gone months without practicing, or at least weeks, without any kind of formal practice. And in fact, the whole time, for the whole year, she's not really been a big formal practicing kind of person, but what she does is she meditates informally. And that's where I can come in and help, right? Because if you feel like you don't have the time to do it, well, that's where a coach like me, and this is something you're not going to get out of a book on meditation, right? But a coach like me can help you to cultivate or to devise a way in which you can do some practices, do the necessary practices without taking even as much as 5 minutes a day, right? But a lot of times, a lot of my clients do prefer a sort of mix, right? They prefer some formal practice and some informal practice. But very few of my clients have done do the kind of formal practice that I do every day, which is about 25 minutes a day, right? Very few of them do that kind of level of daily formal practice. But yet every one of them has come through and found these improvements in their life. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, like it is very, very doable. And if you would like some information about that, if you want to get into a conversation about how this works and how you can gain control and realize your own happiness and your own well-being, well, then all you got to do is reach out and talk to me. Okay. And I'll give you the information at the end of this podcast on how to do that. Okay. So let's get into the topic, though, that we're talking about today, right? Which is the topic of acceptance, right? Now, acceptance is a really, really tricky term, especially here in the Western world, right? In the U.S., and which is true about most of these things, right? Like as I discussed, the other day with the curiosity and the beginner's mind, right? Our whole lives are based on what we know. Right, we're tested on what we know. What we know equals what we can earn in our income, right? And yet we never consider what we don't know. Right. So it's very counterintuitive to live in this realm of understanding that there's things that we don't know, things that we might never know. Right. And to understand that, and that allows the curiosity to when we can recognize that there's so much that we don't know, we don't even know what we don't know. Right. Then that allows us to meet each thing that's happening with curiosity and questioning, like, is this thing exactly what I think it is, or is it not? Right. Now, again, I don't want to go too far into that. I don't want to digress because we did a whole episode on that on Monday, like 30 something minutes. So you can certainly go and listen to that. But it is counterintuitive. And so is, in many ways, compassion, unfortunately. Right. We're taught in this world that we got to fight for what we want. We got to, get ours first, and this is kind of, in contradiction in a lot of ways to compassion. Right. And acceptance is no different. Right. Acceptance is something that is very hard. It's almost like a difficult pill for people to swallow in a lot of ways, right? Because again, we're taught to take control of our situation, right? We're taught that if something's not working for you, you fix it. You don't just accept it, right? And it's important to understand that that's not really what we mean when we talk about acceptance, right? We're not talking about accepting things in like an acquiescence way or a way in which we're surrendering to the fact that we're never going to be able to change it. Right? In fact, it's quite the opposite. That by accepting what it is, right, as opposed to engaging in the clinging or the aversion of what we want it to be so badly, or what we don't want it to be so badly, right? If we can release ourselves of that action and simply accept what is, not what's supposed to be, not what's not supposed to be, but what is, then that is acceptance. And once we do that, now we can see things for what they really are, and now we can actually take action to actually make changes on these things, right? So it's almost like by not accepting things, by engaging in that aversion and that clinging and grasping, we can never truly change the things that we're looking to change, right? And so pardon me. So it's important to understand that that's the level of acceptance that we're talking about here, right? We're not talking about, accepting things in terms of like just giving up and just never, ever, ever improving things. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, on the flip side of the coin of acceptance is letting go. Okay. Pardon me again. So let me give you a very simple example of acceptance, okay? Because again, it becomes something that is very, very kind of in its counterintuitivity, in the way that it's so counterintuitive, it becomes difficult to understand. So sometimes putting in a very, very simple example is something that helps. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So picture yourself driving down the highway, right? And you're on your way to a very important meeting, and you don't have any time to spare, right? You're on time, but you're not early, right? You don't have any extra time to spare, right? And all of a sudden you come around a bend in the road, and all of a sudden you see nothing but brake lights, right? You just ran into the mother of a traffic jam, right? And the traffic's just not even moving, right? Like you're just sitting there, right? Now the next exit is 2 miles up the road. There's cop cars everywhere, so you can't just drive on the shoulder to get off the highway. You're stuck, right? And there's literally nothing you can possibly do to get unstuck from that traffic jam, right? So now you're faced with two real choices at this point, right? Number one, you could get angry, you could get resentful, you could get, just aggravated, right? Just triggered in the fact that you're going to be late for this meeting, right? And again, I'm not saying that's not an important meeting, and it might be really, there might be some true consequences to the fact that you are going to be late, right? But you have this choice to either get angry and get, maybe you're banging on your dashboard or your steering wheel and you're saying, why didn't I leave early? Why didn't I take the other route? Why didn't I do something to avoid this traffic jam that I had no idea was going to be here? Right? But that kind of logic doesn't play in, right? We're angry. We're all, hyper aroused, right? And so you can allow yourself to get into that place of stress and anxiety and heightened emotions, right? And then when you finally do get to your destination, right, that's how you're showing up to that, right? So like if it's a job interview or if it's picking up your children or something like that, right, you're showing up with this just super level of stress, right? Which what's that going to do when you get there, right? Is that going to be helpful? Probably not, right? So then your second option, right, is to maintain your level of calm. Right? And just maybe focus on your breathing for a few moments. Maybe just tell yourself that you did everything you could to be on time, but you're not, right? That you have no control over this traffic jam and it is what it is, right? Now, the second one, right, when you finally do get to your destination, you're going to show up. You can be humble. You can be apologetic. You can be, very thankful and grateful for the grace of your host, if they are graceful and forgiving, right? But the thing is that you're showing up with your power. Right? You're showing up to that thing. Even though you're late, you're showing up with your ability to be the best version of you that you possibly can be, which is not the case in the first instance, right? When you're in that stress response, you are not the best version of you that you can be. What you are in that version is the survivor, right? You are the person who is just trying to survive, right? And so in both of those cases, though, right? Like in the first case, we rejected the fact that we were stuck in the traffic. We tried to fight the fact that we're stuck in the traffic. In the second case, we accepted the fact that we're stuck in traffic, and we were able, in that acceptance, to remain calm, right? But what's the one thing that didn't change no matter what we did? Right? The one thing that didn't change, whether we accepted or didn't accept the traffic jam, the one thing that didn't change is the traffic jam. Right? We're still stuck in traffic. So the idea then with acceptance is, when we can accept what is happening as it's happening, right? Even if it's a negative experience or something that is counter to the outcome that we hope for or that will benefit us in some way, right? Notice I didn't say the word bad because that's judging, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But when we when we accept what has happened, right? What we do is we take a situation that might be displeasurable and might be inconvenient, might be downright harmful to us, right? But by accepting it, we don't make it any worse. Whereas by not accepting it, we take an unfortunate situation. I almost slipped. We take an unfortunate situation, an inconvenient situation, a harmful situation, and we make it worse, right? And that's the difference. Right, we make it worse by showing up to that meeting in after the traffic jam in this heightened state of stress and this misery and like sweating and choking on our words and stuff like that, or snapping at our kids when they finally get in the car and all that kind of stuff, right? And so that's the meaning of acceptance, right? To accept what is happening as it's happening. Okay, now again, it doesn't change the fact that maybe you don't get the job because you were late, and I'm really sorry if that's the case, right? But getting upset about it is not going to change that. Right? Allowing yourself to get to the point of stress and get to the point of anger and get to the point of shame or guilt or any of that is not going to give you the job. Right? So there's no amount of worry, no amount of anxiety, no amount of anger that is ever going to impact that reality. So therefore, what should we do? We should simply accept it. Right? Now, again, on the flip side of the coin of acceptance is the concept of letting go, right? Now, letting go is a little even more tricky than acceptance, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to let go. What does it even mean to let go, right? And so when we say letting go, right, in the context of mindfulness and heartfulness and kindfulness, what we're talking about is letting go of the way we think things are supposed to be, right? And when we we set out on the road, right, and we think it's a 30-minute drive to get where we're going, so we expect a certain level of things that are going to happen, right? We expect that we're going to be in the car for 30 minutes. We expect that nobody's going to cut us off, nobody's going to endanger us. We expect that the music's going to be on the radio. we'll get to where we're going and we'll move on with our lives, right? That's the expectation that we have set for ourselves, right? Well, look at this. You got into traffic, right? So now what happens to those expectations? And again, the expectations are what creates that no, this isn't fair. This can't be happening to me, right? Like, this is not what I planned. This is not what I expected, right? So letting go is the act of letting go of that expectation, letting go of the way that things should have been, or the things that should not have been, right? Letting go can also apply to and so can acceptance, right? Like, I'm talking about a traffic jam, right? But we can also talk about emotions and thoughts and physical sensations that might arise at any given point during the day, right? So for instance, you're in a meeting and somebody in the meeting says something that gets you, makes you look bad in front of the rest of the meeting, right? What do we want to do at that point, right? We want to get angry. We want to get resentful. We want to, give that person their comeuppance, right? What is that going to do for us, right? That's only getting us into the stress response. It's only getting us to a place of hyperarousal. I'm not saying that again, this is not about just letting people do whatever they want to do to you to hurt you, but if you get angry and you let your stress come into play, then you're likely to say something to that person that, again, is going to make a situation worse, right? Whereas if you maintain your level of composure, your level of balance and equanimity, you can then be assertive with that person. And you can discuss something in a way that is going to effectively change the behavior or the performance in the future, right? And again, it becomes about accepting the fact that they said what they said and letting go of the emotions that are churning within us based on this. Just let it go. Just let it go. And now once that's gone, now you're just left with this situation where, hey, I really, I felt very triggered and offended by that thing that you said in the meeting earlier. Could we talk about this so that we can come to an understanding? Because, I'm sure you didn't realize how you made me feel, but if you did, I'm sure you wouldn't want that because, we work together, right? Like something like that, right? Like what, instead of just sitting there stewing and being like, oh, this person, I can't wait to send this nasty email to this person and tell everybody else what a jerk they are, right? And that's what acceptance and compassion is acceptance and letting go is all about, right? I'm reminded now as I'm talking about Eckhart Tolle has a great saying about this. I don't remember where I read this or saw this in one of his books or videos or something, but he says that a duck, right? If you see a couple of ducks floating around on a pond, right, and one duck gets a little close to the other duck, right? The duck who the other duck will flap its wings and squawk and let the first duck know that it's getting too close, right? And then the other duck will swim away, and the second duck will swim their way, and everything will be over, right? And that's it. That's the end of it, right? But as human beings, what we do is, we'd be sitting there saying all day, we'd be sitting there saying, that darn duck, swimming so close to me. He probably does that all the time. I ought to really give him a piece of my mind again. I can't wait to tell all my friends about what a jerk this duck was, and I gotta look for that duck tomorrow and tell him what a jerk he is, and all this stuff, right? I mean, of course, I'm paraphrasing. Eckhart Tolle doesn't use the same words that I do, but the idea is the same, right? The idea is that as human beings, we have this sense that we have to somehow, exact some kind of revenge or make some kind of change based on our own emotions. But my friends, it just doesn't work like that. And it never has, and it never will, right? In fact, when we do that as people, right, when we have this sense of like, oh, I'm so angry that person said that thing in the meeting today, I'm just going to sit here and stew about them all day long. In the anger, the idea is that the anger somehow is going to impact that person in some way. But the reality is that in that moment, that person's probably sitting out having a couple of drinks with a friend and not even thinking about you and not thinking about your emotions and not thinking about the thing that happened earlier or anything like that. So the idea is that they're living their life in happiness, relative happiness, and you're not, right? And again, that's where your well-being and your happiness is within your control. Because if you can just accept that this person said something nasty and that you will ultimately, it won't, a couple of weeks from now, you won't even remember it, right? It's not that big a deal, right? And you can let go of the emotions, that feeling of anger that you want to just, somehow give them their comeuppance, right? When we can accept and let go, then what are we left with? We're left with the conditions for our own happiness and the conditions of our own well-being, right? But by not accepting and not letting go, what are we left with? We're left with creating our own unhappiness and sabotaging our own well-being. And so that's how this all works, folks. And that's what I mean, that it's about us. It's not about what the other person says in the meeting. It's not about the traffic jam. It's not about the duck on the pond. It's about us. Right? That we are in control of all of this, right? I'm not in control of what the person says in the meeting. I'm not in control of the traffic jam, but I'm in control of how I allow that to impact me. I'm in control of how I choose to respond to it. And there might be days where, blowing up in the meeting is appropriate. Like maybe that is the best course of action, to put that person in their spot in front of a room full of people for whatever reason. Maybe that is what needs to happen. But again, it doesn't have to be in a way that is filled with anger and strife and the kind of thing that is going to decrease your well-being. I love this part of this conversation. I mean, this is like my favorite thing is, because this is something that for me was really, really hard to do in my life, was really, really hard to get that concept of accepting and letting go. But it is so huge. Again, it's no bigger or smaller than the presence or the curiosity or the compassion, but all of these things are so absolutely invaluable for creating our own well-being and happiness. Okay. So now, before I mentioned earlier that if you would like to understand, if you would like to, look, there's lots of ways in which I tell you everything you need right here, right? I do, right? If someone were to listen to this podcast every single day and do the practices that I bring up from time to time and really just live in this way, you can do it, right? But it's not that easy for most people, right? It wasn't that easy for me. I mean, I had to make some major changes in my life to make room for this, right? And for a lot of people, as I said earlier, there's things you can't get out of a book, right? Like like when people come into my coaching program and they say, well, I don't have any time to do this meditation. Well, a book isn't going to tell you how to get around that. A coach is. And I am the coach that will. And I am the coach that has done that for many, many people over the last few years. And I would love to do that for you. So if you're interested in getting into a conversation about that, all you got to do is head over to my website, artburnscoaching.com. Go down to at the bottom of every single page on my website. There's like 6 different pages. My wife and I designed it ourselves. She did the better parts. The parts that look better are the ones that she did. But on the bottom of every single page, there is a banner that has a clock on it. You click the button in that banner, okay, and you're going to go right into my calendar. In my calendar, you're going to see there's going to be some numbers that are like grayed out and some numbers that are full black. The full black, I think it's black and gray, but whatever it is, there's some that show that I'm available during those times. There's some that show that I'm not available for those times. So guess what? You just pick one of those times that you're available, that I'm also available. Click on that. You answer, just put in a couple of pieces of information like your email, your phone number, very simple stuff. Nothing complicated. Hit save and we're set. And then from that moment on, I got it. All right. I do the rest of the work. All you have to do is show up for the call and leave the rest to me. So I would love for that to happen. And what happens during that call is that is a 45-minute coaching session. Okay, in which we are going to talk about you and how these concepts are either, very, accessible to you or very hard for you. We're going to talk about the things in your life that are, kind of, creating the issues that you're feeling that you somehow know that you should be happier and you should be more fulfilled in your life. You should be less angry. You should be less stressed. You should be less anxious, whatever it is, right? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to get to the bottom of it very, very quickly within a 45-minute session. And I'm going to show you how the practices that I'm going to teach you how to do and coach you through are going to change everything for you, just like it's changed for me and just like it's changed for all of the clients who I talk about during these calls. So if you're interested in that, if that resonates with you even a little bit, it's a free opportunity for you, okay? So there's really no reason to hold back, no reason not to do it, okay? I have lots of people who send me emails that say, that one call that we had, they didn't even wind up working with me, but that one call we had, I made this change in my life and I can't thank you enough because it's changed everything for me, right? And these are the people who haven't even worked with me. So just imagine what the people who have worked with me are saying. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. I wish you well. I'll be back again tomorrow to talk about presence, and I can't wait for that. All right. I'll see you then, and I shouldn't say I can't wait for it because that's not a very present concept. I just caught myself on that. Sometimes we talk faster than we think. I'm very excited about that. I can wait because I'm here in this present moment, not in the moment tomorrow when I'm going to be recording that video. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I wish you all well, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Take care.